Pro Football Central Radio exclusive. You are listening to Niner Talk Central Radio on the Pro Football Central Radio Network.
Anyhow, we are going to go back to the Bonita Tequila hotline. Yes, sir. We are definitely firing up this hotline today. We've had a lot of great guests, and we're going to keep that moving, and we're going to bring in Mr. Kwame Fisher-Jones of 97.5, The Fanatic. We're going to get a little bit of a Philly flavor to this. A possible matchup for the 49ers in the playoffs.
that's a little ways down the road. The Eagles got a tough one with the Vikings, and then, they got another tough one with the Bears and wrap things up with the Cowboys. So that's a little ways down the road.
Yeah, it's a little ways, and that's why we use that word possible. That's the key word in that whole sentence. What's up with you, man? How you like that intro music?
Hey, man, I was finishing up the Mad Music Blaster and I was finishing it up. Finishing up the last we were going, man. I grew up to Biggie, man. I was right out of high school when Biggie first blew up. In fact, just a little quick story before we get going into the sport. I had DJ Clue's first mixtape, and on his first mixtape, the first one that kind of went big, that was Biggie Small's intro, and he did On the Road to Riches. Diamond Rings.
On the Road to the Riches and Diamond Rings. Real thing.
That was Biggie's first.
I had that.
That was Biggie's first intro. Yeah. That was before he did the joint with Super Cat, Dollar My Baby. I'm really dating myself now.
Oh, what you know about that, man?
That was come on, man. That was in Puffy in the video. Nah, who's that? Puff Daddy. Come on, man.
Yeah.
I'm really dating myself now. Yeah, I was in high school when that came out.
And Party and Bull, you know what? That was,
man, from Who's the Man soundtrack. Come on, man. I remember when Who's the Man came out. Yo, MTV Rap, Ed Lover, Dr. Dre. That's a whole day before they had 106 in Park. Before you had TLL. You wasn't doing nothing if you couldn't do the Ed Lover dance, man. All right, I'm on a whole other track. My bad. But we're talking 49ers here, right?
It's all good, man. We gotta, be comfortable because that's where you're at your best. 49ers. What do you think of the team this year so far?
In full disclosure, I was not a Kaepernick fan. I mentioned earlier that Dylan Rice from Bleacher Report actually did an article when Harbaugh first took over, and I roasted the 49ers. I didn't like the move to keep Alex Smith. And I just I blasted Kaepernick. I felt like they took this young man and he was in a no-win situation. And what I mean by that is you got a cat who really never really played quarterback at the University of Nevada. He was a dude who rushed for over 1,000 yards in three straight seasons, but only threw for over 3,000 yards once. So he was a guy that didn't play quarterback. He was kind of like a quasi-weapon type player. So they put him in a position and they have success, so now the expectations grow out of this world for this cat. He's the prototypical quarterback of the future. And then he comes back this season, and he kind of lands on his face a little bit. And now they're struggling. The defense has kept them going, but offensively he hasn't been that potent weapon that they've hoped he could be. He struggled with consistency. And I'm not a Kaepernick guy. I don't like that type of quarterback. I don't like the mindset because I feel like these cats that have that type of athleticism, they don't get coached to play quarterback. They get coached to do everything but play quarterback. They get coached to run the read option play, or they get coached to just kind of run around and make things happen. And it's a detriment to the game, and I don't like what they do with them. But specifically going with the 49ers, when I feel that they're only going to go as far as he takes them. And now you got a situation where Crabtree's just coming back, and you don't know if he's ever going to round back. And you're hoping he rounds back in the form, but it's kind of late in the season. They got a big win against the Seahawks, although they didn't win in the formidable way you'd like to see them do it. Now they got a round in, and you mentioned them playing the Eagles. They're talking over here as if they get a chance. If Eagle fans are kind of excited about the opportunity of playing the 49ers because they don't believe in Kaepernick. So,
I'm going to stop you right there. They better be careful what they ask for because the last time the 49ers came there, the Eagles were a much better team, and they came in there and punched them right in the face. And
it's a different circumstances, though.
It is a different circumstance, but I'm just saying that's what happened the last time with the same mentality. Now, Chip Kelly
but the point I'm trying to make is
Hey, they better. All I'm saying, they better be careful what they ask for because
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make, is they built this young man up, and they which the 49ers should have gotten credit for was their defense, and they should have allowed Kaepernick to come along much slower than what they put him in. When they began the season, they treated this guy like he was Dan Marino. You know what I mean? And then they had to scale back. Now you got a guy that's got double-digit turnovers and interceptions and fumbles, 57 completion percentage. He's got a workhorse in the backfield. He's got one of the potent playmakers out there, Vernon Davis. You need to see more from him, but they've got to find a way to get him in a comfort zone. He doesn't read his check down. And it's tough to come on a 49ers show and blast the 49ers. And I don't mean to do that.
Good. It's all good.
No, I don't mean to do that because they're a good team, but they go as far as Kaepernick goes. This is a quarterback-driven league, and if you got a stallion back there, but you got to reel him in. You got to figure out how you're going to work with it. It's kind of like a phrase that I love to use is you get these quarterbacks out of Ferraris, and you get coaches that want to put monster truck tires on them. They don't want to let and then they get mad because they're not going full speed. Well, you got to put all the parts in place for you to get the most out of them. So
in all fairness, we have to look at the big picture of things. Now, Anquan Boldin and Vernon Davis, those were his primary options. But if you watch a lot of the All-22, which I've done numerous times on these games, what ends up happening is these receivers are getting murdered at the line of scrimmage. So by the time he's in his drop, he looks over, and you got a receiver still battling at the line of scrimmage instead of being in his route or getting bumped off his route. It's hard to throw the ball to those guys. And the other thing that you have to remember, we're talking about a quarterback, and you make a good point. At Nevada, he did not have the chance to really develop. And let's also remember, going into his rookie season, he didn't even have training camp. So, yeah, he is somebody that needs to develop and needs to further develop as we're talking now. But let's not forget, this man is second year in. You saw what happened to Andrew Luck. What happened to Andrew Luck when you take away Reggie Wayne? What happened?
I get that, but I love it because it's like you're giving me, to be quite frank with you, you're giving me excuses. You're giving me more excuses on the verge and on prom night of why it's not getting done. You got rid of Alex Smith because he was supposed to be that guy. I mean, the bottom line is you got rid of Alex Smith because Kaepernick is supposed to be that dude. So at this point, if your receivers are getting murdered, then he needs to step back. And here's something that we don't see a lot of the young cats do besides Russell Wilson. Do some pre-snap reads. Move some guys in motion. That if a guy's getting murdered, getting off the line, move him in motion. Then they can't jam him.
That's not on Kaepernick to motion his
receivers. Yeah, but you know what?
Come on, man.
It's not on him, but he takes culpability.
That's the play calling. I
get that, but at some point, I get that, but at some point, he has to step up.
What they have to do is run rub routes to allow these guys to get open. So here's the thing. You mentioned having a Maserati and trying to put monster trucks on. Well, you know what? What about having a Maserati and trying to drive it on a dirt road? It's not going to work. What they need to do is allow his receivers to get open. You see what happens when the guys are able to. He actually has weapons. Now, yeah, I mentioned some reasons why he struggled, but if you want to look back to last year, let's talk about some reasons why he excelled. Let's talk about how he throws one of the best deep balls in the NFL. Let's talk about how he's able to
deep balls aren't going to win you championships. And correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are talking Super Bowl, right? It's Super Bowl or bust out there in the EA, right?
Yeah, it is. It is Super Bowl or bust. But you know what? The fact of the matter is, you talk about whether or not they should have went to Alex Smith. Bruh, let me tell you something. Alex Smith, down 17-0 at the Georgia Dome, you might as well go ahead and cancel Christmas because the game's over with him at quarterback. Colin Kaepernick, a different story. Colin Kaepernick at the quarterback in the Super Bowl, down the way they were down, they have a chance. With Alex Smith, once again, you cancel Christmas. So there's definitely a progression from Alex Smith to Colin Kaepernick. But now what we need is the progression from Colin Kaepernick to a Super Bowl winning quarterback, and that's what they're working towards. But here's the thing:
you can't work toward. See, you have mini camp, you have OTAs, you have training camp. That's where these things are done. Your starting quarterback, whom you basically revamped your whole team for, you got rid of a guy who had gotten you to the NFC title game before. You got rid of him.
You know what Alex Smith's number?
Hold on. Let me finish. You got rid of him, and the production you're getting from Kaepernick is not living up to what you aspired for. A 57 completion percentage is not what you set up for. Now, you can give me a litany of reasons why it's not getting done, but at the end of the day, it's not getting done. So you have to sit back and reassess things. And when you're turning around and your offense basically right now is Frank Gore in a cloud of smoke, that's not going to get you Super Bowls. Five yards per play is not going to get you Super Bowls. That's not even top 20 in the league.
But see,
you mentioned he's got a great deep ball.
That's where you're wrong. They're finally back at full strength. That's the thing that you're failing to acknowledge and realize. They're finally back at full strength. So there's going to be an improvement. I mean, obviously the results against the Seahawks were not exactly the best, but again, we're talking about one of the best defenses in the NFL. However, you look at what Kaepernick brings to the table.
He's supposed to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
Well,
if he's supposed to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
Did they win the game? Did they win the game?
Yeah, they won the game.
I'm just curious. Did they win the game?
Yes, they did win the game.
Okay, so we really shouldn't even have that conversation about the Seahawks and 49ers then, because he beat one of the better teams. He, along with the 49ers, beat one of the better teams. He did something right.
So, okay. So you bring it up and then you want to pull it off the table. We can play it. We can do that. We can do that. No. That's what you did. You brought it up. You brought it off the table. That's cool. We can do that. The question is still this.
Because they wanted.
The question is still this: 155 yards passing in that game. A quarterback that's not only throwing interceptions, but is also fumbling, who's struggling to complete passes. You mentioned the All-22 film. You also see on that film he's struggling to read his checkdowns. If his receivers aren't getting off the line, he's struggling to read his checkdowns. He's not doing a good job reading the defense. There's a problem there. And you can't. In a grown man's league, you can't point the finger at everybody else, because you point one at somebody else, it's three pointing back at you.
He's leaving some off the table. What I'm saying, I'm bringing these things up because you're saying that he's a failure, and that's. No, I didn't
say he was a failure. Those words never left my mouth. I didn't say he was a failure.
Well, you're saying what I
said was I was never a Kaepernick guy. He was never taught to play the position at Nevada. He was put in a terrible situation coming into the 49ers. And then they made things worse for him by getting rid of Alex Smith. So he was put in a no-win situation.
So
because now the expectations are not.
What did you see last year?
As far as, be more specific.
As far as him taking them to the Super Bowl.
See, when you look at situations like that, there's two ways to look at that. You can say those are isolated situations, or you can say this is a guy that's talented. So if you have a guy that's talented, which, I believe he is, you don't want to bring him in the following year, especially when you have the whole Super Bowl. The teams that lose in the Super Bowl have a problem going back to next year. You have injuries. I think the best thing for them to do is to bring him back and bring Smith back and have a competition, and then allow him to progress that way. You don't want to give a guy a position, especially when his predecessor was someone who had had success. So what did you see last year?
What's success? You just measure success with Super Bowls. What success did Alex Smith have?
Alex Smith had success as far as wins. The expectations for Alex Smith weren't the same as Colin Kaepernick. When you had Alex Smith back there before they went to the NFC title game, the expectations for Alex Smith were, 6, 7 wins? And then he overachieved, so then the team expectations grown. But no one said going in the 49ers are going to win a Super Bowl. You had people saying Colin Kaepernick was the prototypical quarterback. Those expectations were not fair because he wasn't there yet. So just because he overachieved, just because you put the ball, let's say this way, you put the measurement, you put the ball, let's say at 10 yards, and he gets to 10 yards faster than you expect him to. You then don't change your whole game plan. You continue the progression, and you go 10, you go 20. You bring Alex Smith back, and you let Kaepernick build the team and build the confidence that way. Because then if you have injuries, you still have a foundation to grow with. When you have injuries and you bring a guy back and you've already anointed him by trading Smith and you got Colt McCoy as his backup, and then if he struggles, there's nowhere to go. He's on an island by himself. And you look at his pedigree.
You have to acknowledge this, okay? There's a thing in the NFL. I don't really like it, but it's this thing that they came up with. It's called the salary cap, right? Now, Alex Smith was going to have a high cap number, $8 million. Now, I don't know about you, but if I had $8 million, I'm not trying to pay it to somebody who I don't think is the starter. That's just me. I mean, call me crazy, but
what's Colin Kaepernick's number this year?
Kaepernick is.
I'm sorry?
It's in the low ones. It's like 1.2 million.
Thank you. So it's really the salary cap is a non-fact.
Well, his cap number has nothing to do with Alex's. One doesn't have to do with the other. They had a starter. They were going to go with Colin. That was the decision to make. Anybody will tell you that was the decision to make. It really shouldn't be up for debate. What I asked before was, what did you see last year in comparison to this year? I mean, what changed? Because the only thing that happened that really directly changed with Colin was the pieces around him. And you said that we're making excuses for him this year, but I mean, you were making excuses for him last year, saying that the pieces around him. I mean,
No, I didn't make excuses for him last year. If you remember, I said I was never a Kaepernick guy. But last year when he came in, he had success, and the team won. They reached the Super Bowl. But I didn't think that was the time for you to pull everything off the table and trade Smith. I'm not a big fan of it, and you know, I want to be clear here. I'm also not a big fan of a guy getting the Carson Palmer treatment. And what I mean by that, and let me be clear here. Let me specify here for the glue sniffers and short bus riders. I am not saying Colin Kaepernick is Carson Palmer. What I am doing is using an example. Carson Palmer was a guy who never won his position. He was given the position. And when you go back to John Kitna and things like that, he was given the position. He never beat a guy out. I don't like that treatment. I don't think that wins in the NFL in the long run. Now, you have this phenom in Colin Kaepernick who had overwhelming success. You should have brought Alex Smith back at the very least and allowed them to compete for the position in training camp. Then what that does is that allows you to have two playbooks. That allows you to develop Kaepernick into a system, into a smaller scale playbook where he can have success, and that allows him to beat out a guy where he can build that confidence. And when it happens, when you don't do that, you start off the season, and I think we all would agree here. I think we all would agree that when they started out the season, the offense that they were running was not suited for Kaepernick. Would we all agree with that?
Yeah.
When they started off this season that we're in now,
yeah,
2012?
This season. They started off this season.
With the injuries,
I'll say the personnel may not have been suitable for him, but I'm not going to say that the offense itself. No, I'm not going to agree with you on that one.
I look at a guy that had 440 yards in his first game passing yards. That's not his offense. I can go into attempts and everything. That's not his offense. But I'll move on. The point I'm trying to make is they should have taken smaller steps with him to give him an opportunity to perfect his craft. And they didn't do that. They threw it all at him at once.
2 playbooks is good if you've got 2 off seasons and you got 2 offenses. I mean, they got one offense. You know that 2 quarterbacks does not work for a team, and then we already talked about the salary cap basically forbidding it, and you want to rebuild. You want to give yourself resources around your quarterback and not just the quarterback. So if you do move on, you know, you have pieces around. They wanted to put him in a position to succeed. I really don't think that was a bad decision, but, I mean, I think we need to account for not having Michael Crabtree. You saw Tom Brady not do well without his weapons, and he's Tom Brady. And I know that the expectations are different. I mean, because, you know, Colin had a lot of expectations coming into this year, but I mean,
his expectations were too high for Colin. They were ridiculously too high for Colin.
I could agree with you on that one. I think the expectations were a little high for him, and that they felt. Not when I say they, I'm talking about a lot of media types felt that he would come in and be the one that leads them to the Super Bowl, a la Drew Brees, a la Aaron Rodgers. He's not at that level at this point right now. Will he ever get to that level? We don't know, but he definitely isn't there now. Now, the thing that you have to take into account, though, with bringing Alex Smith back, in a perfect world, that would work, but unfortunately, there's so much money invested in the defense, they're not able to do that, A, but then also, B, it's a situation where you got to strike when the iron's hot. If they would have came back this year and had Alex Smith as the backup for this full year, he would not have gotten the value. I mean, let's be frank. No one whatsoever thought that the 49ers would be able to unload Alex Smith for a second-round pick, a third-round pick who turned into a second-round pick, provided that they did
stop you right there.
No, but can we agree to that, though? Can we agree to that?
No, because no, I can't agree with you there, because you never know what's going to happen on the trade front. You never know what guy is going to go down. And I want to use an example. The quarterback, Rodgers goes down in Green Bay, right? So I'm not saying the 49ers could have traded Smith to Green Bay, but what I'm saying is you never know what quarterback is going to go down and what what coach or what general manager is going to be desperate and think his team is ready to win there. And to be honest with you, you're
not going to get much trade value with a midseason trade, bro. That's not what happens.
But you don't know that. I mean, there was a team in Oakland that gave away a litany of number one picks for a guy in midseason.
We're talking about the Oakland Raiders. The Oakland Raiders, the team that drafted Hayward Bay before Michael Crabtree.
And the general manager that took Hayward Bay didn't make that move. It was a different person. But the point I'm trying to make is you don't know. But you have to do what's best for your team. And I think we're splitting hairs here because we're talking about a salary cap, when the bottom line is you're paying Kaepernick pennies on the dollar for a starting quarterback position. So, you do what's best for him and what's best in the long term for the team. And what would have been best was to allow him to perfect his craft. It was too much expectation. You come into the first game of the season, the Cat's on 39 attempts. That's not what his game was about. That's not what his game was about.
First of all, the first game of the season, let's take this and look at this from a deeper perspective, okay? What happened in the playoffs against the Packers? What happened? Oh, some guy named Colin Kaepernick set the record for most rushing yards by a quarterback in a playoff game. That's what happened. So what happened in the offseason? Dom Capers and his crew went to Texas A&M and God knows wherever else they went to learn how to beat the read option. My man, the read option wasn't even present.
That's a play. It's not an offense. The read option is a play. It's not an offense. If this whole offense consists of one play, then you have a problem. That doesn't account for 39 attempts.
Okay, can I finish this time? Can I finish? What I'm saying is they sold out to beat the read option and to beat the run. They were short Devon House and Tremont Williams. Now, I'm going to tell you something about the NFL. When they see a weakness, when they see an area that is vulnerable, you know what they do? They attack. The Packers played nothing but zone defense in that game. The passing game was there. You take what they give you. And that's exactly what the 49ers did. And that's why Kaepernick had that passing game. That's why he had that. That's why they threw the ball like that. That's why Bolden had that 200-yard passing game, receiving game. That's what happens.
And then you come back the next week, you try to run the same type of offense, and he comes out and throws 3 interceptions. But I suppose that was just a amount of coincidence again.
They didn't try to. Did you watch the game?
Did I watch the Seahawks game?
Yeah, all jokes aside, did you watch it?
Yeah, I watched the game.
They didn't try to run the same offense, man.
They did try to. Oh, okay. I'm not going to. How many passing attempts did he have that game? I don't even have the numbers in front of me, but I remember specifically how many passing attempts he had. How many passing attempts did he have that game?
Let me look it up. I'll look it up for you. Hold on
one. He had 30. He had somewhere between 28 and 30, and 3 interceptions.
He did. I will acknowledge he had 3 interceptions. Had 20. Okay. Time out. So you're saying they used the same offense the following week? Really?
I'm saying they tried to implement the same philosophy, and the Seahawks had a different secondary, so they were able to capitalize on the opportunities that the Packers missed out on. So the point I'm trying to make is they should never have put him in that position.
That's completely untrue. They didn't use the same game plan. I guess the idea in that Seahawks game was, I mean, Kaepernick passed 39 times against the Packers, 27 for 39,
and he passed 28. So that's 11 less attempts. And how many rushing attempts did he have?
Rushing attempts.
He had three more attempps. He had three more attempts than he had against the Packers.
2 more rushing attempts for 87 yards, average 9.7.
So he had 2 more attempts, right? 2 more rushing attempts than he had the week before. But they didn't try to implement the same philosophy. That's what you're telling me.
28 of those yards came with him scrambling. He scrambled also. You got to take that into account too.
You know, it's also the Seattle Seahawks at CenturyLink Field where Tom Brady and, everybody sucks. Nobody really gets away with murder there. I mean, it wasn't really
I agree with that.
And if you look at 2 of the 3 interceptions, only one was really on him. Vernon Davis pulled his hamstring down the sideline, and Richard Sherman made an incredible play on the ball. Vernon missed the next week's game. The other one was in the first quarter. Colin Kaepernick threw a low fastball, and it bounced off of Byron Maxwell's hands up in the air. It was a deflection. It wasn't even a straight pick.
Yeah, I mean, a pick. But I mean, pick is a pick. That's a good point though. But end of the day, here's the thing. Above all else, Colin Kaepernick is definitely somebody who has the potential to be a very good quarterback. And he's a good quarterback at this point right now, and you have to look at everything. And again, I'm going to point to Andrew Luck as an example that, listen, you take away somebody's comfort, their number one target, their guy that they rely on in the clutch, it's going to be a little more difficult for them. And that's that's not an excuse, it's just a fact.
Let me ask you a question, because you made a point earlier. You said that with Colin Kaepernick, you have to look at totality, the entire thing, and then you use the comparison to Andrew Luck. I don't think that's a fair comparison on either side. One, because Luck was a guy that threw for over 4,000 yards his rookie year. Completely different style quarterback. Coach completely different. He had Bruce Arians as his coach, a head coach who loathes the run. He loathes the quarterbacks that run. He wants a guy that sits in the back and kind of statuesque. So I don't think that's a fair comparison to Kaepernick, and that's the point that we completely got away from that I was trying to make. Kaepernick I would say he's a phenom. You have to take baby steps with him, or else what's going to happen is, you know what? I'm in Philly. I cover the Eagles. What you're going to get if you don't take your time with him, you're going to get a Randall Cunningham situation. A marvelous athlete, but not a terrific quarterback. And I love Randall. But you have a marvelous athlete and not a terrific quarterback. That's why I say they should have taken their time with him. You brought the salary cap up. Let's be realistic here. They're getting away with highway murder what they're paying Kaepernick right now as a starting quarterback of a 9-win football team in the midst of a playoff. I think we would agree with that, even though I don't think you guys would agree with anything I would say right now, but I think you all would agree that they're getting away with that. So why not help him by taking your time with him instead of putting him in a situation, regardless of what the other team does? Football is always about discipline and execution. It's that old cliche, you get a seal here, you go up the alley. No coach gives a damn if the other team knows what they're doing. As long as your team executes.
They need to
take
stop.
Your time. Exactly. Take your time. I'm an out there with the Giants. Pitch count with Kaepernick. There's no justifiable reason. I don't care what the Green Bay Packers is doing. They don't have Nitschke at middle linebacker, so Kaepernick shouldn't be throwing 39 passes. And you come back with the Seahawks.
How should he not throw 39 passes if he could complete 27 of them and get 400 yards passing? How should he not do that?
That doesn't set you up for success in the long term. That's what you call isolated. That's what you call isolated moments.
One game at a time, and you take what the defense is giving you. That's what you have to do.
Well, I agree with him in a sense that, what I said today, it's Frank Gore's offense still. I still believe that. I'd like to see him throw less, and have them be about quality and not quantity.
I've said it over and over again. Frank Gore needs to run the ball at least 20 times. I'm not going to.
So hold on. See, now I think you're being a contrarian with anything that I said. How can you say Frank Gore needs to run at least 20 times a game, but Kaepernick can throw 39 based on what the defense gives you? As an offense, you got to dictate. You have to dictate. It's about your pace.
Listen, here's the thing. If they're playing 8 in the box, my man, you better throw the ball and punish them. Okay?
No, you don't do that. You don't do that. No, you don't do that. Not with Frank Gore, because Frank Gore can beat anyone, any safety in the league one-on-one. Frank Gore can beat him. So it doesn't matter if they run 8 in the box. I just watched a dude run for 217 yards. Detroit Lions had the top 5 rushing defense, total yards, touchdowns, everything. LaShawn McCoy made that safety look like he belonged in Pop Warner. Frank Gore is of that elk.
You're talking about a safety. I'm just talking about the whole team. They just the fact that you're sitting here saying that they used the wrong game plan to win a game in which they scored 34 points and passed for over 412 yards. I don't get that. Yeah, you want to give Frank Gore the ball, and I feel that if the game plan can dictate that, you need to give him the ball 20 times. However, if there are opportunities, if there are shots for you to take, you need to take those shots. If you could continuously be successful passing the ball, do it. You go with what works.
No, you can't. But you, as an offense, a championship offense has to dictate to the defense. You said shots. Now, when you take 39, if you're taking 39 shots, you're not hitting. If you're going in to shoot somebody, you're taking 39 shots, you're missing your target. As a police officer, as a marksman, you only need one shot.
He was 69%. So, talk to me. He was 69%.
I am talking to you. You're not trying to hear anything I'm saying.
Because that one right there didn't make sense.
No, it did. Because my point is, you're saying that you take shots. No, you take one shot. With Kaepernick, you take one shot, and if it doesn't work, you go back to Gore. You continue to go back to Gore. Just like your co-host said, you continue to go back to Gore. There should be no reason why your young stud is out there doing that. Because what happens is you have that great moment of success, and everybody gets excited. You go to Seattle, and when you should be running the ball, he's out there throwing 3 interceptions, regardless of how they happened, and I get you your logic behind it, still 3 turnovers. That doesn't help your team win. And let me say this, if you do those 2 things and you come out and you're 2-0, now you're not worried about what this team does, what that team does, or a wild card or having to travel. Those moments matter. It's the little things that add up in football. And you, as an offense, you have to dictate. And when you have Frank Gore, 8 men in the box should not scare you. 8 men in the box should not deter you. Because that 8th man 9 times out of 10 is a safety. And if I got to go safety against Gore, my money's on Gore every time. He may get him first time. He ain't going to get him second down. And I'm not even a 49ers fan.
Again, it goes back to if the opportunities are there, you got to take them. You got to take them. And that's I'm going to stick to that. If a team is selling out to stop the run and you're not able to run the ball successfully, you got to make adjustments. You have to.
I respect the man with conviction. I respect the man that's focused. But on the block, they call it being stubborn. And you, my friend, are being stubborn.
No, I'm
stubborn as a 3-legged mule right now.
I'm just telling you what it is. Qualify it the way you want to. I'm just telling you the way it is, bro. And that's the way it is. That's why do you think they make adjustments during the game? Why do you think that they use a script? Why do you think a script is used initially? Because you want to see how that defense is playing against you. The best coach, one of the best offensive minds ever, Bill Walsh, scripted the first 15 plays of every game. Why? Because he wanted to see how the defense was going to play against him. Yes,
I love that example.
You talk about being stubborn. Well, I would think that it's stubborn to keep going to something that's not working and not making the adjustments to be successful.
I love that example. You know why I love that example? You use Bill Walsh's example. So Bill Walsh would use his 15 scripted plays and he would make an adjustment. What would his adjustment be? His adjustment would be getting Jerry. Okay, they're covering Jerry this way on this route. We'll do it a different way to get Jerry the ball. So your adjustment isn't take Frank Gore out the game. It's run a different play to get Frank Gore the ball. That's your adjustment.
And they
It's
have
it's
gotten
very
Frank.
simple.
They've got Frank Gore the ball. I mean, they don't just plays weren't just scripted just to see how defenses were playing against Jerry Rice. I mean, let's be real. It was scripted to see how defenses were playing against that offense. Are they going
It
to
was scripted to see how they were playing certain types of routes and certain types of players.
Exactly.
And you can look. So if they're playing, okay, you're missing the point. The point is, when you make an adjustment, the adjustment is to not go away from the run. It's to get your run involved in different ways. For instance, I'm gonna use the Philly game as an example because he set a record. All right, the Eagles came out. The Lions were running. The Lions were running. They were running pretty much a stunt. So we're stopping the Eagles run. So the Eagles first quarter, in the beginning of the second quarter, tried to run a lot of toss sweeps, outside stuff, basically because they were trying to get outside. They came back and made an adjustment, and they said, you know what, we're going to run between the tackles. We're going to run man on man, hombre on hombre, hat on hat football, all those great analogies. And we're going to just basically make this adjustment and stick to the run. We're not going to stop running the ball. We're going to adjust and stick to the run. That's the point I'm trying to make. The adjustment should never be to stop doing something completely. That's not an adjustment. That's
But who said they stopped doing something completely?
When you go away from Frank Gore, if he's not the, you know what? When you go 39 attempts, no matter how you cut it, you bailed on the run. You bailed on the run.
Are you sure they bailed on the run? Because he had 21 carries.
He shouldn't have had 39 attempts. He shouldn't have had 39 attempts.
So Frank Gore should have had 39 carries?
Frank Gore should have had 30 carries. Frank Gore should have had 30 carries. Frank Gore should have had 30 carries.
He should have had 30 carries even though he was only averaging 2 yards a carry?
Yes. Because you stay with him. He's a workhorse. Eventually he's going to break a run for you. That's what great players do.
I would love to go against your offense.
Really, you remember we had this conversation, the same. I mean, it's pretty identical. It's getting pretty close. When we were talking about balance. We had a whole argument about balance.
Yeah, I remember that.
Offense, and even if it wasn't working, to kind of just keep hammering it. And it was basically,
here's the thing. I see 21 carries. I mean, I think.
What did he do the next week?
You know, he only had nine carries the next week.
And you know why he had 9 carries? Yards. Because the week before, and you tried to say that they didn't have the same philosophy. The week before, they went away from the run. Then they tried to do the same thing in Seattle. See, the running game is not about getting yards. It's about staying with it. It's about letting the defense know no matter what, you're going to stay with the run. You mentioned the Philly game a few years ago when San Francisco came in here and won that game. How did they come back in that game? They continue to give Frank Gore the ball. He ran that ball. Quentin Michael is...
Yeah,
Go ahead.
They can, but they also mixed in some passes as well. The thing is, this is what I'm saying. You know, I think that they got away from the run against Seattle just because they weren't successful at it. And Greg Roman has this thing, and Dylan, you could agree with me on this. He has this thing where if the run is not working, he will abandon it.
Yes.
And to 39 attempts.
Yes.
39 attempts.
Yeah, that's why he's been on the hot seat. That's why the OC has been on the hot seat all year, because they've struggled to find balance. They've struggled to consistently run the ball. So when Colin Kaepernick throws a lot and his numbers are bad, it's not all on Colin Kaepernick. That's what we're trying to talk about, is everything's interconnected. Play calling, players, personnel, offensive line, injuries, all that stuff, all being interconnected has affected his numbers. And I do agree, you know, they should keep a balance. But, you know, I think somewhere down the line, you know, the criticisms of Colin Kaepernick's statistics, you know, kind of get lost about what's, you know, all those other parts, everything else that's going on.
I think the criticism of his statistics fall into the line of the expectations, and it's kind of like the which came first, the chicken or the egg. But if you put, you know, you guys know this better than me. If you were to run the same offense, let's say the same. I don't want to say conservative because that's not fair to Alex Smith. But let's say you were to run something similar to that, to a T. I believe they had Alex Smith on the pitch count. Am I right in that assertion?
He was on a pitch count for sure.
Pretty low.
If you were to run that same type of offense, and instead of trying to do some old fancy whoop-de-doo twirly stuff with Kaepernick, you run that same thing and give Kaepernick the opportunity. Like I mentioned, the marksman shots, not the plethora of shots, not the 39, but the maybe 5, 6, 7 shots, 7 attempts, the big plays down the field. Don't you think he would be not just statistically a much better quarterback, but overall he would be a better quarterback? Would you both agree with me on that?
He will be put in better situations to throw the ball for sure.
Would you agree with me? Would you agree with me that the 49ers name is the 49ers?
Yeah.
No.
I mean,
see, that's what I'm saying. And no matter what I say, you got to agree with me.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying he would be put in a better situation to throw the football. But at the same time,
I think he would be a better quarterback. Go ahead, I'm sorry. I cut you off. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I don't know. I don't know that I could say that he could be a better quarterback. He could probably be a more efficient quarterback. But is that what wins? Being efficient or being effective and dynamic? And I personally, in this league that we're in now, I feel that the dynamic quarterback is what will win for you. And that's just pretty much that. And I'm getting a message from our producer that we gotta wrap this thing up.
Okay. Let me throw one thing out there real fast. And Dylan, I don't mean because let me throw one thing out. The top 10 passing quarterbacks in top 10 passing quarterbacks in NFL history, 8 have won Super Bowls. All right, 8 have won Super Bowls. Top 10 running quarterbacks, 2, Elway and Young, have won Super Bowls. Just keep that in mind when we talk about dynamic and big plays and all that. Quarterback's job is to get the ball into the playmaker's hands.
Downfield passing.
And there's a lot less mobile quarterbacks.
Dynamic downfield passing. I'm not talking about his. I love how he runs.
I know you.
I'm talking.
I know
about
you are, but I'm talking about today. But you have to get your playmakers the ball, even if it's not downfield, and that's where completion percentage and being a better quarterback. You use the word efficient. That's where efficiency comes in. If they're not worried about you doing the check down or the 5-yard dig, they're going to be, they're never, ever going to stop covering the deep stuff.
And that's what they do. They know that that's what he wants to do. They know that his aim is to get the ball downfield. So they sell out, or not sell out, but they fight to stop that. Now, here's the thing. Again, last year was his first year. This year is his first year seeing the adjustments that people have made. Cam Newton struggled in his second year as well. I want to see what he does next year.
You're pressed for time. I will agree with you there. But, my man, give him an opportunity to etch his own mark in the league. Don't evoke the names of Brady, Luck, and Newton. That's not fair to Kaepernick. He's not that player. He's not. Those guys did it in college.
I'm using them as examples.
No, I get that, but when you use them as an example for a cat whose expectations were already too high, which was the one thing you agree with me, you're being consistent with those expectations. Let this young man grow into what he's going to be, and give Frank Gore the ball 30 times a game. You'll be much better.
Right, exactly. They'll be worse. Trust me, 30 times a game. And by the way, Frank Gore is a guy that is over 30 years old, and he's a guy that you want to keep fresh for the end of the season. So yeah, give him 30. I
hope you're right.
30 carries a game and run him into the dirt in the regular season. So come playoffs, you have to suddenly change to this offense that you're saying they in no way should run. Either way, this was a great segment, man. And you know what? We are going to have you on again for sure. Trust that. Real quick, go ahead and give them where they can find you. I followed you yesterday. We talked back and forth on DM. I'm glad you came on. I love debates like this. It's never any hard feelings. And see, here's the thing. People are going to hear this show, Kareem, and they're going to think that you and I have ill will.
Nah, not at all. Not at all. Good put that out there. Yeah.
People don't understand that this is sports talk. This is the way we do it. So yeah. I just want to make sure that everybody understands there's no ill will at all between here and I. I love this type of debate. That's why we've been doing it for almost 40 minutes.
I'll put it. You can check me every Sunday morning with my co-host Matt Lombardo, 975 The Fanatic here in Philadelphia, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. You can check any shows on BackpageSportsRadio.com, and you can check my articles out on Sports Road, all that good stuff. But I want to throw this out here too. I love these type of debates back and forth, and I love them when I'm in the visitors booth. I'm in the visitor seat. You and Dylan are home. You got your feet up. You see everything. You see the post game. It's all 22 of the 49. I don't get that. So I get to throw, you know what I mean, my facts at you cats and see how you can come back to it and see how sharp I am. So I love these type of debates. And I'll be back come playoff time. And I'll tell you what.
My bad, real quick. Least I could do is get your name right, you know.
It's all right, man. It's all right.
My bad.
It's all right. Somebody must have texted you. It's cool. It's all right.
You have been listening to an exclusive podcast on the Pro Football Central Radio Network. For news, blogs, and other awesome podcasts, please check out ProFootballCentral.com and follow us on Twitter at PF Central.